Okay, good. And then welcome. So tonight's class um, is, again, we're going to stick with the idea of moving through the whole body. So we're going to start towards the sides of the neck and in through the chest and the shoulders, try and get some release and some, I'm not sure the right word to use, just kind of fixate or just kind of bring down some of the tension and the inflammation sometimes that we get in that space. So we're going to start in the upper shoulders and move down through the side body, in through the hips, a little bit into the hamstrings, and just really take time to let the body open and create some space through a lot of the larger joints and through the ribs and the vertebrae that we compress our body all day long, whether we're sitting or we're standing or just containing ourselves in a lot of stress. It compresses everything down. So tonight's practice is intended to give ourselves some shapes to open that back up. We're actually going to start seated. You can start this in Seiza. So if you want to feel a little stronger edge, Seiza is sitting back on heels. So you can do this unsupported, no blocks or bolsters, or you can place a bolster between the legs or over the calves. But we're going to be here for a little bit. So if you choose to start this way and it becomes too much, just turn it into seated. If you like to start seated, I do suggest that you sit up on top of something so that there's space beneath the hands, because we're going to focus on the shoulders. So come to whatever shape you prefer to start in, whether it's a comfortable seat or you're sitting on heels. Let the eyes close down and just take a few really intentional breaths here, maybe some sighs, to settle in, to release the tension and the jaw. Feel the shoulders start to melt back. And with each exhale you take, start to become aware of how your alignment is through your spine. If you need to bring the back of the head back a little bit so that you feel the neck fall in place with the spine. If you maybe need to tip the pelvis downward to take any excessive arching out of the low back. Just really becoming aware in your own body how it's feeling. Achy and sore, fatigued. Maybe you're feeling really fantastic. And if that's the case, then breathe really easy into that sensation. And let's take 3 intentional breaths here. So I want you to breathe slowly, start to fill up the whole torso. So you feel the ribs expand. Maybe the spine feels like it's growing. You breathe right up into the top of the lungs. And a sigh to let everything go. 2 more just like that. So this inhale is as quick or as slow as feels really good for you. Heavy to let it go. 1 more. And release. We're going to move into what's called a seated broken wing. So we're going to bring our right arm alongside. That's why we need to lift the hips a little if you're seated. You want to be able to let the arm be fully straight without having to contort the upper body at all. And the left arm is going to come around behind. Your hand is going to maybe look for the wrist. Start to walk up the forearm. And if it's available, you start to squeeze the shoulder blades back. You can take hold all the way up towards the elbow. So I'll just turn so you could see. So this is a version of something like a shoulder roll, but it's a lot more gentle. It brings a lot more opening across the full front of the chest. So find the location for the bind that feels the best in your body. Take a breath, close the eyes, start to tune into how this feels. We want to bring some structure to the spine. So again, maybe you tip the pelvis down, drawing the tailbone down. Take that severe arch out of the low back. Notice if your shoulders are trying to pull forward and let them move back. Bring the back of the head backwards just a little bit. You're going to feel the neck align. Take a breath here. And then we're going to drop the left ear towards the left shoulder, only as much as feels like it's available. We've got the bind on the right, moving the head away from that side. And you can explore the sensation, the tension, the opening through the side of the neck and into the top of the shoulder by moving chin. When you find the space, pause, relax with a big sigh, and then breathe into all this sensation. Notice if your right hand is clenched in a fist. And if it is, see if you can let that unravel. Just let the hand be as soft as it can. It's not really part of the pose. It's just soft and dangling at the end of your arm. It just comes too strong through the side of the neck. You can always roll the head forward or bring the head back in line. You can also move the bound structure of your broken wing and change it so it's not so intense. We're going to take 6 more cycles of breath here. See if you can relax the low body, the face. Continuing to intend the shoulders back to open the chest. Last breath here. Before we move the head, if you haven't done that yet, release the bind of the arms. Just let the arms drop forward, maybe come to the lap or the knees. We're going to draw the chin in so the head slowly rolls forward. This can feel really strong through the side of the neck, so make sure you take your time. We're going to pause here just for a moment. And if it feels better to roll it all the way over to the right, just to find a little release on that side, you can, or we're just going to lift the head back up to center. You can use a hand to help that happen. Take a breath. Let's drop the hands down to the side, both this time. Inhale, draw the hands out into a T. We're going to wrap the arms around, right arm over top of left. This doesn't have to be a really tight bind. We're just bringing a counter release to the outside of the right shoulder. Take a full breath into this really tight restriction that you've created. You might feel the space between the shoulder blades open. One more really deep inhale. And as you let the breath go, relax the arms. And we're going to take the other side. So the left hand comes alongside the body. And then the right arm is going to come around looking for that bind. Might be quite different on this side, so let that be okay. Whether it's higher or lower, shoulders feel so different. When you have that space, take a breath in, lift the spine tall, move the shoulder blades back, and take these breaths here to find that alignment through the spine, the opening through the shoulders. Start to soften the hand, the face, the legs. And then when you feel ready, we start to drop the right ear towards the right shoulder. Take your time to explore. Mindful of how this feels. If you start to feel anything that's electric, feel anything that really doesn't feel right, might be some deep nerve compression or just real deep tension through the shoulder. We don't want the hand going numb. So then you just alter this to come something that is more appropriate for this side. And breathe. And we'll take 6 more breaths here. Last one. As you let the breath go, release the bind on the arms, leaving this neck opening just for a moment. The hands come back forward. We're going to drop the head, tuck the chin in, moving really, really slow. Take a breath or two here. Keep intending the shoulders back. And again, just like on the other side, you can bring a little movement here side to side, really gentle if that feels better, or just help guide the chin back through center. When the hands come alongside, we're going to take the same bind forward. Inhale, take the hands out into a T. This time, We're going to wrap the other arm over top. So left arm over, wrap the arms around. Big deep breath into this hug. Open up the space between the shoulder blades. One more breath. And as you release the breath, just let go of the arms and come back down. And just pause here. You can have the chin lifted. You can have it tucked down and in. Just take a few breaths, see how that feels. That might be a really huge energy release. And then wiggle the fingers, let the eyes open back up. If the feet feel like they've fallen asleep at all, if you're cross-legged, just take them forward, wiggle the toes. If you're sitting back on heels, you're going to want to come forward into something like a table and let go of the intensity through the legs. Because we are going to come to stand. We're going to come towards dangling. So we don't want there to be any of that sleep tingle through our legs. We want to feel really strong and stable to come back to standing. Let's take one more moment, maybe a little squeeze to the legs helps move all the fluids back in. And then take your time as you start to come towards something that looks like standing. I'm going to give you some options. Dangling is a standing forward fold. And if you have those blocks, you might want to put them in front of you. Your feet are going to be about hip width apart. They can even be a little bit wider if that feels best for you. And if standing in this forward fold is something that just doesn't feel really great, maybe you have some restrictions for the hips and the fold can be really strong, you can always come to a wall and let the back of your legs and your sit bones touch the wall for full support. And then it gives you a little bit more ease to come forward. But we want to have a bend in the knees as we do this. If you have a lot of space in your hamstrings, then you might find that you don't have to have quite as deep a bend. We want to let everything go from the hips. So if you find that this is a really shallow space for you, maybe this is your fold, but we don't want the fold coming from the upper body. We want it coming from the hips. So then we lengthen out the spine, we bend the knees, and we can brace into a little bit of a squat here and let the head and neck come forward. And then as we spend some time here, maybe the hips start to lift. So we're only here for about 3 minutes. So start to find your way into your version of this. The best way to support it is to use the wall or to build the floor up to meet you. It takes a lot of the muscle intention out of this shape. Make sure that you're still breathing. And now that you're here, take a big sigh and then notice if your pelvis is tucked. So now it feels like your tailbone is tucked under and you can feel your core engagement. See now if you can relax that. So we want the core to soften rather than to contract towards the core and the pelvis. Create space there, and maybe you feel a little bit more ease as we hang here. Only about 5 really slow, intentional cycles of breath left here. And this shape is really relaxation inducing. And you might be thinking, not for me, it's not. But having your head below your heart, letting everything in this inversion drain down through the heart in towards the top of the head, the crown. The tractioning of the spine and reaching into the big tendons and joints. I actually do this every night before I go to bed. One more really easy breath. Now bend your knees a little bit more than they already are. We're very slowly going to walk up the legs with the hands and bring ourselves maybe even only to halfway standing. Just to be able to lift the head, we're just going to pause here for a moment, take the gaze forward, let the blood pressure really start to balance itself back out. And we're going to convert this into malasana or yoga squat. And if you're like, oh my gosh, that's so strong, I have options for you. Don't worry at all. This is going to still feel really great in your body. If squat is something that you have in your practice and it's a place you want to go, then let the heels ground down or come onto a blanket or fold over your mat and you start to drop your hips in. If this is not something that your body does easily, then you bring your blocks in and you sit down. So you have one block, maybe two, maybe you're sitting on a bolster. Feet flat on the floor and just start to walk your feet out as far as feels comfortable through your hips socket. Elbows come to the inside of your knees for a little bit of intention. Maybe the hands come to heart. Shoulders can drop forward, head can drop forward. This has all the same intention as being in the really deep edge hip opening version. Let's take a full deep breath here. And if you're in that full squat and you can stay, I'm going to stay for maybe another 10, 12 breaths. And if your body's like, nope, I think it's time to come out, then transition into the seated version. Wherever you are, lots of breath and lots of relaxation in your exhale. Let it all go. Let's take 3 more breaths in whichever variation that you find yourself in. And then we're going to start to come down towards seated. So if you're in the full version of the squat, you can sit right back down, or you can lift the hips up first. Use your hands to help you. Maybe you drop for a moment back into this standing forward fold, into dangling, and then safely making your way right down to the floor. Let's bring the legs forward for some rebound time. You can bring the hands behind you, or you can come right down into Shavasana, whatever feels the most necessary as you let that go. Really strong, very deep through the spine, through the hips, through the hamstrings. Releases a lot of stuff, shifts a lot of energy. So be intentional here with your breath. And maybe you start to invite in some movement, wiggle the toes, point and flex the feet. You could even bring feet to the floor and take a few windshield wipers if that feels good, through the hips and the low back. We're going to come to sit. We are coming into half dragonfly. So I am going to take my right leg out to the side and bring my left foot in. Now remember, in dragonfly, this is half straddle, but this side leg only has to be wider than the width of your hip, and that is a straddle pose. So don't open this so strong that it creates an uncomfortable space through your hip socket. And you can always bring in your bolster here. We're going to take this laterally to start. So you can bring a bolster in front of the leg, on top. You can use blocks to support this. The side bend doesn't have to be particularly deep. We're going to start by sitting up nice and tall. Inhale, make the spine tall, ground down through the sit bones. Let the hands support you in this shape. And if you feel like you're unstable, then tuck a blanket under whichever sit bone feels like it needs a little extra support. And then we take the right arm towards the right leg. We can sweep the left arm up and over, or we can leave it resting on the knee, and we're going to laterally bend. So you're moving to the side, the shoulder, the elbow coming down towards that leg. We keep the body open towards the front of your mat or towards that front knee. Now here we can let the head dangle as well if that feels safe. Lots of ways to support it. We're not here for a super long time. You might bring your head to the fist on the arm on that side. If you want a deeper edge, then the left arm can come right up and over and lay alongside the head. Just try not to let that shoulder collapse. You want to keep the heart opening. And then be mindful here of your breath. Relax to the legs. Feel this through the spine, opening through the outside body, compression on the underside. And remember, the depth of this side bend is completely up to you. It can be really, really shallow. Let's just take 2 more breaths here. Now you let your hands help guide you back up any way that makes sense for you. You can bring a hand to the side of your face to help bring the neck and head back in line. Take a breath. And then we're going to turn this into a forward fold. Your choice is whether you fold this straight forward or whether it would feel better in your body to turn your heart towards your extended leg and fold in this direction. So you're still going to be receiving and feeling into the hips, the hamstring, the spine in both versions of your forward folds. But it just depends in your body which one's going to feel best in your practice tonight. So you can bring in props, bolsters across the lap, in front of you. You might even bring it on an angle and create a more restorative, shallow fold in a place for your head to rest that's nice and soft. This is really supported. It brings some ease and length to the low back. As you find your way in, take your sigh. Starting to deepen your breath. And with that deeper inhale, notice where you feel the shift in your body the most. Hamstrings, inner groin, or a bit of a tractioning of the spine. And slowly bring ourselves back up to center. You're going to bring a bend into that extended leg. We're just going to pause for a moment so you can let both feet find the floor and just take a few breaths here. If movement is what you need, let the knees fall side to side. And when you're ready, we're going to switch sides. So the left leg comes to the straddle. Right knee bends, the foot comes in. Again, you can tuck blanket under the sit bones to be able to level them out so that you can sit really stable and easy. Take a breath with a tall spine so that you can take a moment to explore what that means in your body. And then we slowly start to come into this lateral side bend. You bring in the props as supports as you need it for your body. And remember, it can be nice and shallow. We're not here for a particularly long time. We want to twist the heart open. So this truly is a side bend, opening up through the outside line. Maybe you let the head drop and bring the neck into a little bit more opening through that side. And once you've found the depth of this side bend, take a sigh and relax the legs. You're likely holding a lot of tension, like holding the legs up. Let them melt down. Just 5 more breaths. Heavy sigh on this last one. The hands come down to help support you as you bring the heart back to center. A hand might help guide the head. And then take a break here. We're going to turn this into our forward fold. And again, you can come straight forward or you can rotate the upper body and come down towards the length of that leg. You can bring your supports in a different way maybe than you brought them in on the other side. That's okay. We're so different, one side to the other. To start to explore your way in. Be okay with whatever changes or differences there are on this side. When you found your space that feels right, the edge that works for you here, take that big sigh. Starting to deepen your breath. And taking your time, letting the hands come down to the floor, start to lift the heart back up towards center. We're going to come down onto our back for a rebound. And as you're coming down, really be kind as you bend that knee. We're going to just have most of our props nearby because we're going to make a choice while we're here. So coming all the way down, just come right down into Shavasana. Let everything be long. The shoulders just Tuck under to open up through the heart space. Come back to breath and really feel all the way through your body right now. Take a breath or two here to notice maybe anything that feels missed or forgotten, or a space that maybe the energy or the tension feels like it's still a little stuck. We have a few more breaths here to really feel in and let everything, the prana, all move through. We're going to come to a back bend, and you have a choice of where you're going to want to go. We can come to a version of supported bridge, which will open and reach into your whole front line and your hip flexors. In the back, it affects more your lower space in the spine, your low back. Or you could come to a supported fish with your bolster the length of your spine. That brings in a little bit of low back and more through the chest and into the arms and shoulders. Or we can still be a supported fish, but take that bolster across the mat so it's underneath your lower ribs, and then let the upper space, the heart, the shoulders, the arms, the head drop back. This lifts the heart. This brings the back bend into the upper portion of your spine and really focuses the opening through the upper part of the chest, the throat, the arms, and the shoulders. So while you take these last couple breaths here in your rebound, really feel into yourself and see which of those spaces, which of those variations would feel best. And then wiggle the toes, start to bring in your movement. And then choose. Really quick, I'm going to show you, so if you're not sure how to get in, bridge we're all familiar with, feet on the floor, press in, place either your bolster or your block under your sacrum. This brings the back bend into the lower part of the spine, opens the front of the body. Supported fish, this one we're also quite familiar with this bolster the length of your spine. You come right down. You can choose where you like your legs to be. In Shavasana, maybe you have soles of feet together, maybe the feet are on the floor. You want to do the heart lift, open up that upper space of your back. The bolster comes under your low ribs. Bring a block so it comes behind your head. The shoulders are above your bolster. Let the arms come to find a home. Maybe you even let the head drop right down if the floor doesn't feel too far away. And then you find a space for your legs. Shift and move, take the exploration. And then when you've found your version here, take your big sigh. This is likely a more restorative shape than any of our others so far in our practice tonight. So let this feel really supported and really good in your body. If you find yourself pushing towards that deeper edge, that stronger sensation, maybe pull back a little bit so that you can really feel into your body just a little bit more. Starting to deepen your breath. Breathe right up into your heart space. Really expand the lungs. There should be lots of space to breathe. Now, without changing where we are just yet, I'm going to invite you, if you're in a version of supported fish, so the bolster is behind your spine, some orientation, to reach and take a block. So if you have a block beneath your head, that could stay there. See if you can reach to find your other block. We're going to take our feet and place them on the floor about hip width apart. If you're in supported fish and your legs were long, walk your feet back so that your heels are closer to your sit bone, even though your hips are up on your block. So if you're in a supported bridge, you're going to stay right there right now. The only thing you might choose is if you're higher than a level 1, you might change your block height down. For those of us in supported fish, we're going to press into our feet, lift up your hips without removing your bolster, and slide your block under your sacrum. So this should be fairly easy to do with the back supported, lifting the hips up. So now if you have the bolster the length of your spine, also your hips are supported on your block. If you're in a position similar to me, the bolster's beneath your ribs, your hips are on your block. Now you can bring your hands, everyone, to the outside of that block if it's accessible. You can leave your hands on the floor. We're going to pick the knees up and bring them towards your chest. We're preparing for something like waterfall. So move nice and slow. Keep the legs in towards the body. You might shift yourself on your block so that you feel really stable there. Just take a few breaths right here. You might choose to stay right here, regardless of the variation of your support. So you might wrap your arms around and let the knees get heavier to the chest and stay right here. This lengthens out the low back. This might feel really fantastic. Take a breath. Now you have the option of lifting your feet up in the air as well, bringing this into a variation of legs up. If you have your hands on the outside of your block for stability, they can stay or move away. They could actually move to be a little bit behind the thighs if your back line is supported. This can feel really great. Just let the legs fall heavy away and your hands just cup behind your thighs. Or you can release them, let the hands find a home, and really support it here. Just breathe. If the variation of your supports makes having the legs feel like a lot of hard work, then let the knees get heavy to the body again. Five more really slow breaths. Last one right here. If your legs are up, then very gently bend the knees. Let the thighs get heavy towards the body. Maybe you give yourself a little squeeze just for a breath. Lengthen out the low back. One foot at a time is looking for the floor. Take your time. This is not a shape we're used to being supported in, so we might have to bring hands down to feel really stable. When you're ready, press into the feet enough to first remove the block from beneath the sit bones, beneath the sacrum, set it aside. If you're in a version here still of supported fish, start to unravel this. So maybe one arm comes across the body if your bolster's behind the length of your spine. If you're in lifted heart, hands behind the head, bring the chin towards the chest first, and then we roll to the side and remove the support. Come down, either onto your back or onto your side. Take a few breaths here. And then we're going to start to slowly move into our version of Shavasana. If you're reaching for blankets or socks, just move so that you don't shake up your energy body. Maybe you bring your bolster underneath the knees to bring some ease to the low back. Maybe you come into pentacle pose, the legs wide and the arms spread way open, taking up lots of space. Just take a few moments. Don't rush as you find the perfect space for our relaxation. And then take a slow, deep breath in. Really feel like you're inflating the entire body. And a big sigh to let it all go. Connect with the sensation of your breath as it's moving through you. Notice how all the spaces of your body feel right now. The weight and the connection on the floor. And take a slow, deep breath in, drawing the energy right from the soles of the feet all the way up into the space of the heart, the throat, in behind the eyes, right up to the crown of the head. And then let it go. Bringing in movement again through fingers and toes, wrists, ankles. Let your head gently start to drop from side to side. And then point your toes, reach your arms up overhead, take a full good morning stretch, open up all those spaces, and then let it go. Start to shift and move, bringing in any movement that feels right or feels necessary as you start to slowly make your way back up towards seated. As you arrive, sit bones are heavy. You could sit up on something if you like, or just come to any comfortable position. Let the eyes close, and we'll check in. The intention of tonight's practice was to recalibrate, to move out and really open and expand all those spaces that we hold our tension. To the sides of the neck, the back and the top of the shoulders, from the core through the side body and deep into the hips and the hamstrings. Top to the bottom. So breathe really full and easy into all those spaces. And just notice what's there. And then bring hands to heart. And just let the base of the thumbs rest in toward your chest. Drop the chin. Just take a moment to honor yourself. Find some gratitude for you for making the time to come out to practice, for feeling good in your skin. As always, you have my gratitude for joining me and allowing me to guide you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Keep taking care, and I'll see you soon.